Hello there, welcome to my channel. I am Bryan Lomax, for those new to this channel. I've started doing this thing for a couple of years where for my top tier patrons and my top tier members, they each get to participate in a yearly video where I will choose a topic, a favourite, whatever, and they will get to throw an option into the hat and I will then rank them. So I did, what did I do? Was it favourite movie? I may have done my patrons' favourite movies. This time around I am doing favourite actors. So not everybody has to participate. They don't have to if they don't want to, but the ones that did, I have seven. Seven threw a name into the hat. So I have seven different actors here that I'm going to rank in order of my personal preference. These are all a favourite actor of one of my patrons or members, and I will shout out their name as we go along. Hopefully whoever is on bottom won't be too offended, but I will explain my reasons. I will say I do like all of the actors that are on this list, and every single one of the actors on this list has movies that are in my all-time top favourite movies. So, you know, there's no one on here that I would just outright dismiss, but I did have to put them in an order of preference, and so there you go, that's what I've done. So with that in mind, let's get into it. Again, don't want to cause offence, but bottom slot, number 7 out of these 7 actors is Arnold Schwarzenegger. So this is Cold Hot Man's choice. This is the username who is my patron. He chose Arnold Schwarzenegger. I love Arnold Schwarzenegger as much as the next guy. I certainly love a lot of his movies, particularly like the sci-fi action stuff, you know, Terminator 1 and 2, Total Recall. It just, for me, Schwarzenegger isn't so much an actor as he is a presence, a star, a movie star. You know, there is a particular thing that he does, and you take that and then you gear a movie around him, rather than like some of the other names on this list. While they are movie stars, they are also actors. It's not so much about building a movie around them, it's that they are the best person for pretty much most of the jobs, and therefore if you have the money to cast them, you cast them because you know they're going to take on any role and make something of it. That to me is an actor. That's not necessarily what Schwarzenegger is. Now that's not to say he doesn't have different dynamics to his character, because you know he's done comedies, he's done, I mean, technically the first Terminator film is kind of like a horror, you know, he is a horror presence in that. He's done your sci-fi, your action films, so he can do different things, but to a certain extent. You know, you're never going to put Schwarzenegger in a film like There Will Be Blood. It just ain't going to work. So that's really why he is at number 7. He's in the bottom spot, and yet, just off the top of my head, not really looking at my list, out of all the actors on this list, he probably has the highest placed. Oh no, not quite. Out of the actors on this list, he's one of the highest placed when it comes to who has the best movies. Because like Terminator 2, in my top 10 movies of all time. So not everyone on this list can make that claim. So swings and roundabouts. But as an actor, and that's what I'm judging this on, I'm not judging it off the whole catalogue of movies, whether the movies are any good. I'm judging it on them as an actor and their appeal to me. At number 6, we've got Callum Walker's choice, and that is Jack Nicholson. I love Jack Nicholson. I think to some extent, again, he has that movie star flavour about him. I do think he's got a much more dynamic range than the likes of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think you can give him a wider variety of roles than what you would give to Schwarzenegger, but he still has that movie star vibe thing going on. You know, you take Jack Nicholson, who he is, what he brings as a person, as a character, and you kind of work a movie around him. That's why he was perfect for Joker in Batman, because even before he took the role, most people were saying, you know what, Jack Nicholson would be a good shout for Joker. He practically is Joker. You know, take what he did in The Shining, add a bit more of the kind of kookiness of something like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and you've got Joker right there. So, yeah, again, still that movie star thing. I wouldn't necessarily put him in any role, but he certainly has a wider range than the likes of Schwarzenegger. And there's a certain appeal to Nicholson that when you watch him, no matter what you're going to watch him in, even something as lame as like Anger Management, you know you're still going to get some entertainment value because of who he is as a character. I also like the spontaneity that he might bring to any given role. You know, you think about The Departed and the scene with the dildo kind of that he just whips out. That wasn't scripted. That wasn't there. He just did that. He said to Scorsese he's going to do it. So that reaction you see on, is it DiCaprio's face? I think. So, I couldn't remember if it was DiCaprio or Damon that he does that to. I think it's DiCaprio. But the reaction that you get on their face is real because they didn't know that was going to happen. And again, that's down to Nicholson, the spontaneity of him as an actor. Next up for me is Leonardo DiCaprio, and this is Thomas Jones's choice. I really like Leonardo DiCaprio. It took an awful long time for him to win an Oscar. He's dedicated. He will take something that will happen and use it. Again, like, you know, you think about the way Nicholson brings spontaneity. DiCaprio can take something that shouldn't happen and then use it. A little bit like Brando in that respect. You know, like the famous story about Brando in On the Waterfront where he picked up the glove that Eva Marie Saint dropped and then just started playing with it. Not scripted, wasn't intended, but he used it and it didn't faze him, it didn't put him off. You know, you take that to the next step, you've got DiCaprio in Django Unchanged seriously cutting his hand with glass, bleeding everywhere and using it. Some might say to an over-the-top degree, in that he rubbed his hand in Kerry Washington's face. Not a very nice thing to do, I don't think. But as far as the scene goes, as far as how that benefited the film and the reality of that scene and the emotions of the characters and everything that was going on, I can't fault it. It was a dynamite move. It was a ballsy move, but it worked, and it certainly made that scene a lot more than what it was just scripted. So it's that kind of stuff from an actor, the not being fazed when something happens, but actually rather using it. Someone else on this list I will bring up for that purpose. That's something I admire in an actor, and the choices that DiCaprio makes as well in terms of the obviously he's got free reign at this point. Even so, there's plenty of actors who get to that stage in their career where they could pretty much make whatever they want to make, and then they go off and they make something that's a head scratcher, and you're like, you've just crapped on your career. Why did you do that? Whereas DiCaprio is pretty much a guarantee, even if you don't like the guy, it's pretty much a guarantee that whatever he makes, the film itself, is more likely than not going to be a damn fine film. He's got good quality control management, I'll say that much. So yeah, definitely a movie star, but he's got a lot of range. He's done a lot of different things, and he's still relatively young as far as actors go. You know, he's still got a full career ahead of him, so who knows where he's going to go from here. At number 4 is Robert De Niro, and this is my good friend Jack Petrie's choice. I'm not overly fond of De Niro personally. When I see him in interviews, things like that, I can't quite warm to the man, and yet he's produced some absolutely brilliant performances and been in some absolutely brilliant movies over the years. Just recently I rewatched The Fan, the Tony Scott film, a film I dismissed back when it came out, and I think again it's that thing with age can change your perspective a lot. I watched The Fan recently and thought his performance in that was actually pretty good, and that's one of his lesser films as far as most people are concerned. Whereas you go like Godfather Part 2, Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, the performances in them are really phenomenal, even if I'm not always that big on those films. I'm not the biggest fan of Taxi Driver compared to most people. Still think it's a very good film, but I'm not as high on it as most. And yet, I still recognise that it's a really great performance. De Niro can do subtlety, that's the thing. De Niro can do a lot with just not much appearing to go on, just in his face, just subtle reactions, very quiet demeanour about him, and yet he can switch it up and be quite a scary dude. But a lot of the intimidation that he's able to produce in some of his roles actually comes from being very quiet, very still, and yeah, I appreciate that in him as a performer. I can't think of Robert De Niro without thinking of Al Pacino, though. The two of them are just so, their careers are so melded together in so many ways, for so many different reasons. I am more of an Al Pacino man myself. If it comes down to it, I would go Al Pacino. I'd be more drawn to seeing an Al Pacino performance than I would a Robert De Niro performance. But still can't, you can't argue with that body of work. Number 3 for me is Tom Cruise. This is Joshua Kroger's choice. This is the thing with Cruise is, so he has that thing that I talked about with Schwarzenegger and with Nicholson, which is that he's a movie star. He is the movie star. If you were to argue who is the quintessential movie star, I think Tom Cruise would be on the top of most people's lists. Now, the thing that makes Cruise a movie star, really, aside from the looks and the smile, is that he's willing to push the boundaries of big action spectacle cinema, and his commitment cannot be understated. This is a guy who attaches himself to the side of buildings, the tallest building in the world. He attaches himself to the side of planes taking off. He flies his own planes. He does stunts on bikes himself. He puts stuntmen out of business, and some people might argue, well, that's slightly unfair. But what that allows is some of the greatest shots in action cinema. When you've got the actual actor in the shot and you can see them doing the stuff, that just brings a whole fresh new dynamic to what you can do with an action movie. He's literally in the last 10 years, for sure, Tom Cruise has shaped the whole face of action cinema, Hollywood action cinema. So that I appreciate. And again, you can throw the argument that, he's not really an actor, he's a movie star. I think there are certain roles, key roles throughout his career that kind of go against that push back against the kind of criticism that maybe I levelled at Nicholson and particularly at Schwarzenegger, where every once in a while, Cruise comes along and he does a Magnolia. He does A Few Good Men. He does Born on the 4th of July. Again, like I say, he'll go for a stretch where he puts out all these big action blockbusters, which in their own right are an absolute art form, particularly the way Cruise does them, because of how much he puts of himself into them from a physicality standpoint. And every so often, boom, he'll come out and he'll do a film that's performance driven, something like Magnolia, which is again one of my absolute favourite movies of all time. It's in my top 10 movies of all time. Cruise's performance in that is a big part of that. Seeing a completely different side to him as an actor in that was just, fantastic. So for me, Cruise is a fantastic actor when he's allowed to be, when he's given that kind of material, but he's also a top tier movie star. He's the full package in that regard. Does he lean more on his, movie star roles? Yeah, absolutely. But again, things like Eyes Wide Shut, that kind of thing, prove that he's not just a movie star, he is an actor. Number 2 for me is Gene Hackman. This is M.V. Allender's choice. This is the name he threw into the hat. Shame that we've not really seen. I mean, he's still alive, isn't he? Gene Hackman is out there somewhere. But yeah, he retired from acting essentially, which was a real shame because of all the actors on this list, I would say he's the one with the most gravitas. He's the one that you could stick in a movie, you could give him a bit part, whatever, and he'd bring the most gravitas. He's the one that you just pay attention to. If he enters a room, starts talking, he's going to get your attention because he just has it. He's just got that thing that is required to generate that kind of interest, So, but again, the body of work, you look back at his career, so many classics in so many different decades, so many great roles. Phenomenal. For many people, still the quintessential Lex Luthor. Not for me personally. I think that side of the Superman movie lore for me has aged a bit. Not in the most graceful way, but I still love him in Superman. He's still a very easy watch. But I look at him in films like The Conversation. He can do again very subtle performance in The Conversation of a man losing it essentially due to the sheer paranoia that is building up within him, and that's all in this just very still kind of subtle performance from him that he ekes out, and yet he can also go large, as with Lex Luthor. A lot of political kind of thrillers, courtroom dramas, things like Class Action, where again, it's a film like Class Action is made on the actors you put into it, and you can't really get a better actor than someone like Gene Hackman in a film like that. But my number 1 choice is Christian Bale. This is Clayton Humbert's choice. He does a channel called Ages of Film. I don't know if this is actually his favourite actor or whether he just did this to get the win. I don't know. But Christian Bale is in my favourite movie of all time, The Dark Knight. Still my favourite interpretation of my favourite character. I love that he gets all 3 aspects of that character, the animal nature of Batman himself, and the 2 different sides to Bruce Wayne, the shrewd businessman and the kind of womanizing playboy. So far, really the only iteration, I think, of Batman to get all of those 3 sides. But beyond that, just other films like I remember is it The Mechanic? It's called The Machinist. I remember reading an article on The Machinist, and I mean, I'm a wuss anyway. I get quite lightheaded when it comes to things about the body. I find the human body to be quite disgusting, quite miraculous, quite a feat of engineering, but disgusting at the same time. So I remember reading an article about The Machinist and just what he was putting his body through, and the pictures of him in that film alongside the article. I literally went lightheaded. Like I say, I'm a wuss. But I remember just nearly going down as I was reading that. I mean, just what Bale is willing to do to his own body for the sake of his craft, for the sake of his art, is insane, quite frankly. His body is a tool for his craft. That's the way he's kind of used it over the years, but it's not just about putting on the weight, taking the weight off. That's the commitment side of things, but also just great performances, really great performances in films like The Prestige, another Nolan film, but The Fighter, my absolute favourite boxing movie of all time. But his performance as Dickie Edwards, phenomenal performance, absolutely phenomenal performance. Just the bit in that film where he finally realizes that he's the problem, he's the issue, and he sits down by that wall, and it's almost like he's praying, and he's just and that scene just gets me every time. The way he delivers that whole role in that film is just a phenomenal performance. One of my favorite. He is a chameleon. Is pretty much, I think, anything that he puts his mind to, any role he's given, he would probably do pretty well in it. Yeah, one of the best actors of this or any generation, to be perfectly honest. And if I was to do a top 10 actors, my personal choice of actors, he would definitely be in the top 10. So yeah, there you go. So that is the end of that video. That is my ranking of my patrons and members' favourite actors. If you would like to take part in one of these future videos, then come on board. Come on board either my Patreon or my membership on the YouTube membership program on the top tier levels. Only top tier members get to throw names or choices into the mix, so to speak. But you know, it's fun. It's a bit of fun. Again, sorry to those who get picked on the bottom. It's nothing personal. It's just preference. And as I said, I do like all of the actors that are on this list. But yeah, next year maybe we'll do actresses next year. Who knows? But that's it for this time. Although this is being released in 2025, a little bit late. Should have come end of December, really. 2024. It's a little bit late, but we'll get another one in at the end of 2025, hopefully, if I'm not too late with that one again. But yeah, anyway, thank you for watching this video. Do click that thumbs up, hit the subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, cracking.